know that running a veterinary business can sometimes feel like you're fighting your way through a jungle of financial insecurity, HR nightmares, and overall business confusion? Our goal is to give you the ideas and tools you need to not just survive in this jungle, but to thrive in the veterinary industry. By combining over 50 years of knowledge and experience with differing opinions and a little humor, we will help you get the information you need to make the best decisions for you and your veterinary business. Welcome to the Veterinary Survival Show with veterinary CPA and certified financial planner Mark McGaunn and certified veterinary practice manager and practice owner Jenni George.
Welcome, everybody, to the Veterinary Survival Show podcast. Mark and Jenni, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Doing awesome.
Awesome. So last episode was out. We're getting some good reviews on that. And we're jumping into a new topic today, a little bit up your alley, Mark. Planning financially for slow times, emergencies, or new equipment. When you see that new shiny thing that you want for your vet office, or maybe the economy's not going well or something along that, or if an emergency comes up, you need to really alter. So that's the stage for today. And for the kickoff question, Mark, I'm going to throw this one to you. What are the most common financial vulnerabilities you see in veterinary practices as a CPA advisor?
Kind of like from a personal financial standpoint, most people don't have emergency savings. We see practices all the time that haven't saved for those rainy days. When I start looking at people making more money and they start taking out distributions, kind of like dentists do, they earn it and then they spend it immediately because that is awesome.
It does feel really good to be able to I've reached this point where I can buy the 2-ply toilet paper instead of the 1-ply.
Well, an 11-year-old child of one of our dental clients told him that he deserved a Porsche because he worked so hard.
An 11-year-old? I don't even deserve a Porsche.
And she must be really good at sales because he actually went and bought one.
No.
Yes. Should he have?
No.
Same thing in veterinary medicine. You need to save for those rainy days, whether it's 1 month of expenses in a high yield savings account or money market account for your practice. Once you start generating that cash flow or extra cash flow, you have to save a little bit of it. I know, Jenni, you've been a huge proponent of doing that all the time. You bank it. We may have to pay some taxes, though, but
it happens. That's a real kicker is the taxes. But no, I think, Mark, COVID, if anything, we had to pivot, we had to do a lot, but a lot of veterinary clinics had to be open. But I know in my case, I had team members who were not able to come in, who were unwilling to come in for various reasons, whether they had elderly family members at home that they were taking care of or they were just terrified. I wanted to make sure they got paid. And that reserve money that I had saved helped me be able to still we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what we needed to do. And so it really helped me make sure that my team was truly taken care of, even though maybe the income wasn't as good. We were still able to offer all the benefits that we normally have. I was able to give people the time that they needed, and they still got paid. So to me, COVID should have been a wake-up call to say, hey, we don't know when hopefully nothing like that happens again, but we don't know. You don't know when an earthquake, you look at the weather and how volatile it is. We don't know when that's going to hit I know veterinary clinics down south that have been hit with floods, that have been hit with hurricanes. And yes, we have insurance. That's not an immediate. That's not something that they go, oh, we're just going to write you a check today. That takes time. And so you need to be prepared for when those things happen. Mark, is there I know your answer to this. Is there a percentage that you should have saved up? It depends.
It depends. It's kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to have safety and security. And if you have 1 month of expenses, if you have 50,000 of expenses saved up in an account, you can proceed forward and hopefully you'll have little financial pain. Mm-hmm. There's kids in New England that think that the Patriots are supposed to win the Super Bowl every year. That's what they grew up thinking, 6 times.
Chris is pointing at his poster in the
and everything's going to be rosy, but when it isn't, and there's periodic recessions, there's real estate crashes, There's COVID. There's other things that are coming down the pike. They have to be. You want to have something saved for that. So whether it's 1 month, 2 months, in personal financial planning, people say 3 to 6 months, salary, have it saved up in a bank account for that rainy day. And some people are rainy day people, and some people are, the glass is always full and nothing bad is going to happen. But I think a good measured approach would be a benefit to everybody.
So,
Well, I think too, like I am a glass half full person, and I know that bad things can happen. So I feel like I try to make sure that I have 2 months worth of everything at all times, so that covers salary, that covers, I mean, even if, say, something horrible happens and we have a flood, I still have to pay my distributors. I still, like, those bills are going to keep coming, even if I lost everything and I'm waiting for insurance to pay out. So for me, I try and have like 2 to 3 months saved up. And I know it used to feel like a lot of money. And now after COVID, I'm really glad that I had that. And I think that for me, that was really like, what's the benefit? Because you're looking at this money and it's just sitting there. And yes, you should have it in a high yield account so it's making interest. But you're going, well, I could spend that on, right, the new shiny toy that's out there. But it really comes in handy when you need it.
Definitely.
Mark, speaking of emergencies, and Jenni, talking about COVID and everything, Mark, you can use COVID. COVID's a little bit of an outlier, but again, as you said, slow things happen. But what mistakes do practices make when planning for emergencies? Actually, Jenni or Mark, you could answer this. Would you say financially, or
They don't plan.
But
That's the mistake.
some people, they're winging it every day.
Mhm. And I think too, insurance audits are very important. I think that we don't, you might have gotten insurance when you first opened up as a practice, or, maybe you added another doctor or did an addition. Well, since then, what new equipment have you added? What equipment have you changed out? Making sure that you have the serial numbers, the make and model of all of these very expensive items that you now own. I think that we're not great about auditing our insurance and making sure that we're covered for everything. And then when these catastrophes happen, we're like, well, wait, I had insurance. I found out the hard way that I only had insurance for $10,000 worth of our refrigerator broke and our vaccines were all in it for the spring. And I didn't know it, because now we check our temperatures every single day. I mean, you learn from your mistakes, but also I increased our insurance coverage because I was like, we had, I want to say almost $70,000 worth of vaccines that we lost. And we were only covered for 10,000. So to me, that's a big thing, is look at your insurance, have them come in and take pictures and talk to you and walk the whole thing, your whole practice, and go over, what do you have for liability? What do you have for coverage of equipment? What do you have for coverage of things that can expire, like your vaccines and things like that?
We've had 4 or 5 clients that have had catastrophes. We had a client whose practice burned down. We had a client who had a skunk crawl under their building, and then the weight of the ice squished the skunk.
No.
Yeah, bad. Very bad. Had another client, a tenant above the practice, left their water going for a whole weekend, and the practice was completely flooded, the bathtub, I think. Yeah, but I mean, anything could happen. I mean, it's just, sheer luck. And
Right.
hopefully we always talk about risk management, asset protection, risk management. Your practice is your biggest earning asset, typically in a veterinarian's portfolio. You have to do everything you can to protect it.
We had our pipes, so we're in New England, we had our pipes freeze, our sprinkler system pipes froze. And the amount of water that comes out. So one of my technicians was like, Jenni, we have a problem. And I go back there and another technician is holding a bucket as this water starts dripping out. And then all of a sudden it pours out. Now, luckily, I know how to shut it off real fast. But even in the less than 1 minute that it took me to shut it off, gallons and gallons of water flooded our inventory room, went down into the garage where the trucks were parked. I mean, it can be no one's fault but nature, but, poor planning. We again changed how our sprinkler system works so that the likelihood of them freezing again is minimal. But this is where I think our insurance comes in handy. And people always complain, right? Because insurance is expensive. And what if I don't use it? But what if you need it?
Right.
I think it's important.
100%. So a lot of that, Jenni, you had to learn the hard way, but so thank you for passing that on. That
Everything I learn is the hard way.
Yeah. So what I've heard from Mark so far and Jenni, again, you want to have a happy, but also healthy cash reserve so that you can really plan for those unplanned things. Have the insurance coverages, insurance you may not even think about. Do a full audit of everything that could go wrong. So you have a contingency plan for that. But beyond that, when maybe things are going well and you, as Jenni said, you see that new shiny thing, or maybe you went to a conference and saw something you thought could really help your practice. When is it smart to lease or buy new equipment for a veterinary practice?
Do you want the answer?
Yes.
It depends.
Chris, this is what we're getting on our t-shirts for this show, because that's Mark's answer to everything is it depends. So what does it depend on, Mark?
Is there a certain threshold?
It depends on what you fundamentally are. Some people are lease people. Some people are buy people. And in the veterinary world, lease can mean anything. A lease is a capital lease, an operating lease, but pretty much most equipment is purchased with a capital lease. There's a bargain purchase option for $1. You own it at the end of the lease term. You qualify to write it off up front under Section 179. But these leasing companies are very, very nebulous. They don't specify what your interest rate is in the leases. In the old days, IDEX, Antec, equipment manufacturers would give you a lease on your behalf and then pay it with points that you earned for lab spending, et cetera. Now they're really not doing leases, and they're giving just the equipment for free, and there's no transfer of ownership. It's kind of yours. And a lot of people are like, well, what do I owe and what do I deduct? And it's a hard decision sometimes, because you may not be able to deduct anything up front because the equipment's really not yours. It's kind of just in limbo. It's kind of a weird situation. So you have to look at these leases from before you sign them. Usually most people sign them and then say, hey, can you take a look at this? Which is a bad move.
Oh, wait, I think I did that a couple times. I try and lease if I don't have the money to spend upfront, or if our truck broke, I want to say last year in November, we had to buy a new truck. For a large animal practice, usually, especially in the New England area, usually heading into December, January, February, that's a little bit of a slower time for us. So I did the, financing through the dealership for the truck, but I always ask, is there any penalty to pay it off early? Because my goal then is to have it completely paid off within 6 months, which is what I usually do. So my interest is, yes, there is some interest there, but I'm not going to shell out this, $50, $60, $70, $80,000 right going into what could be considered a slow season. And then I make sure that it's paid off in 6 months. If I can pay for it, I do. If we, our dental x-ray machine broke, I had a lot of stuff break this year. My oxygen kennel broke this year. I had to buy a new one of those. If I can pay for it outright, I will. And I kind of have money, apart from the money set aside for emergency cases, I also have money set aside for things like that. That's not an emergency per se, I have to make sure my team gets paid. That's an emergency, I need to get a new oxygen kennel in here. And if I can pay for it outright, then I will. But if I can't and we need it, or when we were first starting, my husband really wanted an ultrasound machine. He loves radiology. He loves diagnostics. He loves ultrasound. So we got a new ultrasound machine, and that's fine. But that I couldn't pay for at the time. I knew it would pay for itself over time, but I couldn't. That was just not an option. So then I did lease it. So it really does depend on, can you afford it? Can't you afford it? Where are you at? Are you going into a slow season? I think you have to take all of that into consideration, and maybe have your CPA look it over first before you sign anything.
We have one client that sends us all the deals that he's getting. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Which a lot of people don't do. They're like, oh, I bought a piece of equipment and it's a 5-year lease. And can you tell me what the rate I'm paying? Because I don't see it. I'm like, yeah, that's because it's not in there.
Right. And it really isn't. The paperwork is very not clear like a normal loan would be. When I financed through the dealership for a truck, here's your interest, here's what you've paid, here's what's principal, things like that. But with those leases, it's not on there. It's very strange.
Well, it's kind of like selling a car. Your low payment of, and that's kind of how they proceed with, wow, this is your payment. Okay. With no concept of time value of money. I mean, if you're paying this out over 5 years at X% interest rate, why do that? I mean, my father years ago when I bought my first car in 1984 said, you can get a 5-year rate, a 4-year rate, 3-year rate, get a 4 in the middle of the road. Never get a 5-year lease.
Right.
On a
should you look at that kind of stuff if you're purchasing like a new building or things like that? Should you look at the mortgage, or is that a totally different beast?
It's a building's a necessary evil and a benefit. A piece of equipment, probably when you say drive it off the lot, it's old technology. Otherwise, why would equipment vendors go back to VMX every year? Because they're going to sell the new model.
Right. I think also if you're going to buy that shiny new piece of equipment, really don't do it by the seat of your pants. Like really sit there and say, okay, are we going to train our team on this? I mean, look at an ultrasound. There are a lot of general practice people who don't know how to do ultrasounds and refer out. That's fine. All of my doctors have gone through extra training to learn how to properly use that ultrasound on a daily basis. We use our ultrasound, probably 20 times a day. So it definitely paid for itself. But if you look at something and you say, I really want this endoscope, are you going to use it? And are you going to put everybody through the training? Or is it going to be one doctor only knows how to use it? Same with like a rehab laser or a dental, dentistry. If you're not doing a lot of these things, is it really going to pay itself back?
And we see people that use lasers as a doorstop.
Oh, God.
They bought them at shows. They were fully committed. They never started using them proactively after every surgery or every derm case. They kind of fell by the wayside. But you need a champion for a piece of equipment. Who's going to champion it and who's going to get on the bandwagon with you?
And you need to make sure that champion is willing to help train others, because there is sometimes this, well, it's mine attitude, oh, we got the laser and it's mine and I don't want anybody else to use it. And that doesn't do you any good either, because what happens when that person is sick or if they leave or they lose interest? So it's important to make sure that you're in this all together as a practice and not just, oh, I want this, so I'm going to go because boy, do they have a good deal at the conferences, which they do always have good deals at the conferences. I bought a gas sterilizer because we needed it, because we were driving our items that needed to be gas sterilized to another practice, and we would do it a couple times a year. And so finally it was a good deal. We got it. We did not learn how to use it for a full year. I didn't have it. It sat there. And I'm like, why did I do this? We weren't ready for it. I had to pay somebody to come and drill a hole in the wall so it could, be vented properly and all of this. So I didn't follow my own advice, and I really didn't make sure that we were going to use it. Now we use it all the time, and we have the instructions all written out. So it's right there ready to go. Anybody can use it. So, but it does, you have to be committed and you have to be willing to do the training. Right. To utilize it.
And then in the vet world, is there times when it makes sense to buy used equipment or anything around that? Or is it pretty much you want to get everything new? I know the dogs can't really tell what's new versus old, or they have the latest tech, but is there a way maybe to get deals or anything to look for that equipment, or is it mostly you're buying new?
I mean, we have a lot of practices that are starting up that will buy retiring practitioners' inventory, furniture, cabinetry,
kennels,
exam tables, kennels, like you said, things that people don't really care about. We've had people get things at flea markets and put it in their practice for those things that people don't care about. I mean, the true patient care dependent equipment that you need to be operating 100% of the time, you can buy refurbished for very cheap. I mean, when we're looking at doing valuations for practices and we're trying to value their equipment in some quasi-accurate manner, we're looking online and I'm like, wow, you can get that for $6,000, not $15,000?
But I would be careful about that, like on the things that really matter, like I think I would be more likely to buy a refurbished like IDEX machine as opposed to a refurbished oxygen kennel, because that sucker better work and it better work well.
I wouldn't buy an anesthesia machine.
No, I would probably buy that new, I think. There are things that I think are better, but like our first truck, our first vet box, all of those were used. And the kennels, right, I think a lot of our kennels we bought used. We had a veterinarian who unfortunately passed in the area, and he was a large animal vet. He did mixed as well. And his son came by with all of this cattle stuff that no one else is going to use. We still use it because you don't use it very often, so it's in relatively good shape. But we also bought an autoclave off of him, and I'm going to tell you that dinosaur works consistently. We have a new autoclave that gives us, like, I always have to get it repaired and things are always wrong with it. But this old autoclave that is probably from like the 80s, that sucker works, and it works great. Yep. And it never breaks. So some of these things really are meant to last. But you just have to know what you're getting.
So I like that. The things that are critical that the animals need to stay alive, to really do that care, get new and make sure that they're reliable. But hey, if you're starting out and there's a great deal or something, maybe the kennel can be the 2024 version. It doesn't need to be the 2026 one off the lot. Like that a lot. Switching over, Mark, I've heard you say this and write in blogs. Cash flow can really affect a business. So how should a practice think about budgeting for seasonality or for a slow period? Or I don't want to use the big R word if that comes up. Recession. Sorry,
You said it.
Sorry, I'll knock on wood. But how should they think about budgeting for those slow periods or something seasonality?
Well, like I said before, you do need that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of cash flow saved up in your high yield savings account. You also need to make sure that I think your wages are on parity or even better than the practice next door, because in a downturn, if there's financial pressures on your practice, employees may sense that and start looking. Mm-hmm. And if it's purely in their mind that they're going to protect their employment, no matter where it shall lie, they may end up leaving, and then you're in a double quagmire. You've lost your employees and your practice is in financial difficulty, or not financial difficulty, but pressure.
I think, too, seasonality does happen. Like I said, we're a mixed animal practice. Our small animal doesn't necessarily slow down right now, but our large animal sure does. Yesterday, we had to reschedule a couple of them. It was -3 with the wind chill. You can only do so much out on the road. And if we are floating a horse's teeth and have to sedate it, you can't do that because they sweat and it doesn't go well. So some of the things that we do is, aside from financial things, is utilize that time as the time to get the things done that you don't get done when it's busy, right? So in the practice, you could, deep cleaning is always necessary, but we start to plan ahead this time of year. We're in December when we're recording this. We start to plan ahead for how we're going to handle spring next year. So we get our spring schedule ready. We start emailing our clients, looking to pre-book, things like that. And it's thinking ahead. We have maybe more one-on-one meetings with people. Let's do some strategic planning. Where do we see ourselves? But utilizing that time, go over your training. What are your SOPs? What needs to be updated? What doesn't? Talk to the newest people that you've hired. How is your training? What do you think we could do better? This is a great opportunity that I think, instead of just sending people home early, and I know you feel that way because, like Mark said, you might feel that financial pressure, but also putting time into your team and your practice that maybe you don't have time for when you're crazy busy, right? When the spring hits, everybody needs to get their rabies vaccines done. We're doing health certificate, all these things. Babies are being born. What can you do in those slow times that you're utilizing your time and you're working on your business, not just in it? Because to what Mark said with team members leaving, if they feel like, hey, you're really interested in us and you want this place to be better and you want us to be better, then use that time to let them know that. Not only are you paying them properly, but also you're saying, hey, maybe we haven't been doing this great. How can we do it better? And this is that time to sit down and really get ideas. And hey, maybe we can utilize 3 things for next year. But I think the mistake that a lot of veterinarians make is it's slow. the cash flow isn't as high as it normally is. Let's start sending people home early, which is fine if that's what you have to do. But also maybe look at this as an opportunity to say, what can we do to work on our business? What can we do to include our team so that they feel heard and make it so that we continue to run smoothly? I think we get stuck in the day-to-day, just keep your head down, keep doing what you're doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But also make sure that we're doing maintenance. We know that if you do maintenance on your anesthesia machine, you need to do maintenance. You want to make sure that there's no leaks. You want to make sure that it's working properly, because when you need it, you don't want to have it break down. Well, think about your business the same way. What maintenance can you do on it? Maybe this is the time to start looking at what can we fix around here equipment-wise, what needs to be done. So I think that's just really important, that we get a little freaked out when that cash flow isn't coming in, and instead flip the narrative. Instead of being freaked out, say, oh, thank God we have a little bit of time. Let's start meeting together. Let's start talking. Let's use this time to work on our business.
I mean, a lot of people think that the worst of times is the time to hunker down. And I know I bought my practice years ago in one of the worst financial periods of the 2000s. So actually in the 90s and 2000s, I did the same thing. So
you're like, there's a recession. Let me go spend some money.
But it's kind of like the Warren Buffett method. Opportunity presents itself when everybody else is scrambling. You hunker down and buy. Same thing with, a veterinary hospital. People always ask me, is it the right time to start a veterinary hospital or acquire a veterinary hospital? I'm like, when isn't it? And if it's the worst of times, go ahead and do it as well, because then you're on a better trajectory when things turn around.
And be aware that sometimes you buy. So we started our practice in 2007. Some people might remember what happened in 2008. That was a huge recession. The markets went crazy. We still did okay. We did fine. And that's the beauty of the veterinary industry, is it is a pretty resilient industry. I think we freak out a little bit more than we need to, because in reality, the veterinary industry is resilient. People love their animals. I just got my 8th dog. His name's Ocho because he's the 8th. But, I'm going to do anything for them, and yes, I was smart and married a veterinarian so that I can do that. Not everybody has that opportunity, but people want to take care of their pets, and they might not be able to do everything that you want them to do, but the veterinary industry is quite resilient. And so I think that level of fear that holds you back it's doing exactly that. It's holding you back. Mark, I'm amazed that you have not at this point brought up your favorite thing to talk about that I don't like.
Besides taxes?
Oh, besides taxes. The monthly payments to pay for your plans, your medical plans for your animals.
Well,
what is that called?
Subscription-based
medicine. I'm like, I freaking hate this. And you love it. And I keep waiting for you to bring it up, and you haven't yet.
Well, you were talking and I didn't want to interrupt.
You're better than me.
But there was a recent study that came out that said, I think 50 to 60% of pet owners are scared that they can't afford the next level of care over preventative medicine. And they don't have a budget for it. Do they use care credit? Do they do a payment plan? And I think that might be a perfect opportunity for subscription-based medicine, because I don't know what kind of care they're getting now. When they say preventative care, are they going every recommended opportunity? Are they getting dentistry done? Or are they just getting their vaccines and maybe once every couple of years coming into the practice? Mm-hmm. So I think getting them in for subscription-based medicine plans bonds them to the practice, makes them come more frequently. Hopefully things are caught before they become an issue, and it brings revenue to the practice.
Right. It helps slow down that lack of cash flow because it's coming in.
It's smoothing out cash flow throughout the course of the year. And it's not for every client. It's for 5%, 10%, 15%. I mean, we have some that are higher, but I think it's a good smoother of cash flow like an annuity. And I think it's better. I mean, I basically am on a subscription-based plan because I think I'm paying for our vet hospital's new addition.
That's what everybody says. Everybody's like, you should put my name on a door. And I'm like, I promise you there are people spending more.
Well, I told them before to do it, so I think it's my fault.
It is, for sure, 100%. No, what we're talking about is wellness plans. And you can set up wellness plans in your practice however it works best for you, as far as, do you want them to come in once a year? Maybe after they're 8 years old, they come in twice a year. Maybe your wellness plan includes blood work, a fecal, a urinalysis. Maybe if you have a golden retriever, you want to be ultrasounding it once or twice a year just to make sure there's nothing growing on the spleen, right? Or the liver. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make that work. And I know Mark's probably laughing inwardly because I don't do wellness plans in our practice, but we don't have the cash flow issues. And I do allow a lot of clients to just pay a certain amount every month, whether they owe us money or whether they don't. But that's the benefit of being the owner and the practice manager and knowing the flow of the money and everything. But it is something to think about if you really are in an area that you notice certain months out of the year are really dipped down. How can you keep that going steady throughout the year so that you don't see those dips?
And something you just said there, Jenni, just jumping on a little bit. How can owners create more predictable financial year round? I love the wellness plan to include it, but is that forecasting, Mark or Jenni, or is that just like recognizing your patterns year over year and being preemptive about it?
Well, they're specifically designed to get people to come in on a regular basis. And those are the type of people that once they sign up, you don't have to remind them to do it. They're wanting to do it. They're kind of checking what are all the benefits that they offer. It's kind of like a health club. They make breakfast for you. You go to yoga, you go to Pilates, you get a massage, you go to the pool.
Whoa, what health club are you going to? I don't have that.
I did go. It was too far away. The breakfast was fantastic.
That's amazing.
But those preventative care plans or subscription-based plans are all the rage in everything. I mean, most new practice groups are coming out with you're a subscription-based member or you're not. So, like Modern Animal, I think out in LA, they take 600 pets per location and then they build a new location. They fill up fast though. So in that model, you may be traveling to, if you want to stay with Modern Animal, you may go to another location that's kind of far away and maybe it may not work for you. A lot of other people are trying to do that. We have some clients in New York City that are trying to do that, and it works for a bunch of people.
I think it helps too if you look at your clientele. Like you said, Mark, this isn't necessarily for everybody. But if I were in an area where I had a very large, maybe senior citizen clientele that are on, they're retired, so they're on a very strict budget, or this is what they get every month, this might work out really well for that. Because when something happens, I already included in my plan is maybe an x-ray and an ultrasound or some blood work. And so I don't have to all of a sudden come up with that money to pay for it. So there are benefits to it for sure. I think also being extremely clear about your fees is very important. Having that conversation, making sure that there's treatment plans for everything. And another, almost a detriment, I think, that we do in veterinary school is we teach veterinarians that it's gold standard for everybody or nothing. And I know that we all want to give gold standard to pets, but it's not always financially feasible. And so I think you have to be able to adapt and say, okay, if we could do everything, right? Go to this, like you said, the high-end wellness fitness club, and we're going to make you breakfast and you're going to sit in the sauna and blah, blah, blah. Great. Maybe all you can do is afford to walk on the treadmill. Okay, then that's what your plan's going to be. But I think that our veterinarians and our veterinary teams really need to be very clear about what their fees are, what their fee structure is, and make sure that there's a treatment plan for everything so that these clients know exactly what they're getting into, what they can and cannot afford. And I think we don't always do a great job of that. And the last thing you want is when someone picks up their animal and they're so grateful you just saved this animal's day, and you give them a bill for $5,000 and they go, I thought it was going to be like $2,000, and that's all I have. And now what? You're not going to keep the dog. So having these conversations ahead of time and just being very transparent, I think, is so important. And I know a lot of veterinarians don't like to have the money conversation. Our technicians are the ones who go over it. Our CVTs are the ones who go over the treatment plans. And our vets, we really try to remove them from that so that they can focus on the medicine, and our receptionists can focus on getting the payments, signing them up for care credit or whatever. And then our technicians are the ones that are going over the plan and then maybe coming out and saying to the doctor, hey, they really want to do this, but they just can't afford it. What can we do? Are there things that we don't have to do? So I think it's important to be adaptable. And I think that's really hard for a lot of veterinarians because a lot of our vets are very type A personalities. So being adaptable can be kind of tricky. But that's the reality of it. The cost of veterinary care has gone up significantly, but I just read an article that said, yes, it has. And the chance of your pet living has also gone up significantly too. So they're very important, but we need to be able to adapt to what our clients can and cannot afford.
No, I love that. Actually, so on my day job where I work with Mark at LGA, on all our proposals, we say no surprise billings, everything up front so people can do it. And I've been on the other side of that as well. My boy Hunter, again, if you're watching this on video, you can see him in the background. He blew out his ACL, other tear, and it was a $5,000 surgery. We were in our late 20s. Me and my wife had just purchased a home, and it was, at the time, didn't have that. So like, oh, but he's our dog. So opened a credit card, got, I think it was also like 1,000 points back for the surgery, did that, financed it, and got the surgery done. So it's nice to hear that being upfront so that you can really plan it out. Like, again, we want to do everything for our dogs, but again, it's the other side too. Pet owners out there, make sure you have insurance that covers all the things that could go wrong, and Google your dog, see what could be normal, and that you have a cash reserve for that. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox there, but
no, that's a good soapbox to have.
I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Oh yeah, here we go.
So pet insurance, I used to be a huge proponent until I had something denied, like in human medicine. So it kind of soured me on it. Someone could convince me to come back. Jenni, you said the word fees.
Oh, God, fees are a bad word. I'm sorry, I forgot. Please don't be mad at me.
Fees are bad. Investment, price, cost. Fees are just punitive. Sounds like a penalty. I think, like I keep saying, or I've said this over the years, that I think human medicine and dentists do this much better with explaining pricing to pet parents, or they should. There needs to be somebody in the practice, like dentists have billing coordinators, and they'll sit you down and say, this is all your insurance is going to cover. This is the estimate. How are we going to pay the balance? Do you want to do care credit? Do you want to do financing, orthobank, whatever it is? But there's something beforehand that's discussed, not after. Usually you go to like Angel in Boston and they'll say, okay, it's a $12,000 bill that we're projecting. You pay 50% up front. How are you going to pay for the other 50%? And you can do a number of options, but it's discussed before. It's not discussed after.
And I think it's important that the person who has that conversation, it has to come from hey, we're a team here. We want to take care of your pet too, but we need to make sure that we do these things. And that's why we have our certified vet techs go over these treatment plans, because then they can say, well, what does this do? Why are you giving my brachiocephalic dog Serenia? And the CVT is educated enough to say, oh, this is why we do it, because they're more likely to aspirate. We don't want them to do that, so we need to make sure we give them something that helps keep them from being nauseous so they don't vomit, so it doesn't get in their lungs. So understanding, if you're going to put somebody in charge of billing, they need to understand what all of the charges are for and be able to have that conversation. I don't think it should be the veterinarian, ever. Do you agree, Mark, knowing my husband?
Well, Simon would never discuss that.
No.
Some veterinarians or owners like to take that role. Some people defer. I think somebody should be educated enough to say that this is the estimate of what we're doing. It sometimes ranges higher, sometimes ranges lower, and give them an idea, just so there aren't any of those surprises.
And there's a concept of value, right? People need to understand the value of what they're getting. And I think if you go in and you feel like you didn't get a proper exam, but you're charged $100 for an exam, and you're going to be like, well, the doctor didn't even look at my dog. Well, the doctor did look at your dog. They just might not have talked their way through it. And so I think that you have to make sure, I'm not saying we have to put on like a dog and pony show, but there needs to be value in what you're doing. And you have to be able to explain that. And you have to be able to explain that and be okay with what your practice is charging. But it is important. You're right. I shouldn't have said fees, Mark. I'm sorry. That is a bad word.
You guys have covered. Oh, sorry.
There's a doctor, a physician in Chicago at Rush Hospital that charges $50,000 minimally invasive knee and hip replacements. He has people flying in from all over the world. They stay at the Peninsula Hotel to recover for a couple days, and people pay that every single day. And he has multiple surgeries he's doing every single day.
Is it not covered by insurance?
It's not. Well, if you get covered by insurance, you're going somewhere else.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He went to MIT and designed the hip and the knee joints. And he said, why do the doctors have to get all the fun? I'm going to go to medical school and I'm going to put them in. So that's what he did. So the concept of value, people value what's being done because they're getting up and walking to get on the plane when they go back home.
Yeah.
So it's all in how you explain it. He has a whole team that they're talking about, a team that discusses the anesthesia, a team that discusses the billing component, a team that discusses aftercare and what goes on during surgery and where you're going to be staying and who's going to be helping you. And so it's a big process that they've put a lot of thought into, and I don't think a lot of veterinarians have put a lot of thought into their whole process-driven system. Mm-hmm. But the pricing part is pretty key because there's a lot of complexity to it.
So really explaining the value of what they're getting. Like I said back to my story about my dog Hunter, it was nice. The surgeon, shout out to Dr. Diamond, he came out and told us about the whole process, him going under everything, and then he's going to be up and running in a few weeks. So that was my value. I'm like, all right, that's awesome. Thank you for explaining everything. Mm-hmm. All right. Yep. This episode, though, you guys have covered a lot. I think we have some featured topics, too. We're going to resilience playbook, Jenni, that I think you could write from things you've learned the hard way.
Oh, God, you have no idea.
Mark, subscription-based model that I think we have to dive in deeper on another episode as well.
Do we, though?
But I think people want to hear it. But
you can put in your AI double, Jenni. You don't have to come yourself.
Okay, yeah. She'll be like, that's a great idea, Mark.
Let me talk to her first.
Okay.
What's one financial practice every vet hospital or practice should adopt immediately for better resilience? If you had to give one lesson right now, I'll shoot over to you first, Mark.
Increase withholding to pay more taxes.
Oh. Why? Explain
because
it.
it's a never-ending cycle, or it should be. Hey, let's pay more money in withholding so we have less money that we have to pay out through estimated taxes, which is a huge financial commitment for a lot of people.
But it just helps spread it out over the year.
Just helps spread it out.
Yeah.
Pay it in ratably across the course of the year.
My big thing, other than saving, I think we've talked about that, and that's very important, but I really think you have to change your mindset when you are going through a, quote, slow time, that you are working on your practice and not in it. Don't freak out. Take a deep breath and really start looking at how can we do things better? How can we be more efficient? And involve your team in that conversation, because that's going to help with your longevity of your team members. They're going to want to stay where they're heard and where they feel like they're helping. So to me, you really need to take those opportunities and say, hey guys, where do you think that maybe we're making some mistakes? And that all goes, I mean, we can do a whole thing on the importance of psychological safety and building a culture, because your team has to feel comfortable coming to you with these things. But this is a great place to start to say, hey, I know we're a little bit slower right now. I'm going to buy you some lunch and we're going to have a brainstorming session. And I want to hear all the things that you feel like we could do better. And you got to have some thick skin, right? Because you're going to be like, I think we do that great. And you might not, but it's important to get their feedback. And then, okay, this is what we're not doing good. How can we fix that? So I think that's the biggest thing that you can do when you feel like you're financially unstable. start saving, whether it be for taxes or for the next pandemic or whatever, but also figure out how you can make your practice run better when you're not going through financial difficulty.
And if you are all listening right now, if you're heading to VMX, Mark and Jenni are both be presenting next month. Mark or Jenni, want to promote that a little bit? What are you guys talking about?
What are you talking about, Mark? I know you and I were supposed to do one together, and then they canceled it.
I know. I can't believe that.
I know. They just don't
I'm
understand.
doing an introduction to financial planning for veterinarians and then an advanced topic on financial planning for veterinarians where we discuss 6 case studies.
Ooh, that's good. I'm doing, I'm speaking with Dr. Peter Weinstein on 2 of them. He and I are doing one on imposter syndrome. And that is going to be really good because I think that affects a lot of people in the veterinary space. And then also we're talking about how to build leaders from within your team. And then I'm doing a talk with Dr. Phil Richmond about building culture and psychological safety. And that talk is going to be real fun because I think we're both have ADHD. So if we can stay on task, I'm going to be really impressed.
I'm going to try and show up.
At least when Mark and I talk together, Mark is like, okay, let's steer the train back on the tracks, Jenni. But I don't know. We'll see. Phil and I it's going to be fun. I'll tell you that.
Awesome.
Helmet.
Well,
everyone,
yeah.
If you're listening to this in 2025, happy holidays, and we will see you all next episode. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Survival Show. If you have any questions for Mark or want to learn more about how LGA supports veterinary practices, visit our website at lga.cpa. Again, that's lga.cpa. Before we go, Mark and Jenni will both be speaking at VMX 2026 in Orlando. Mark will be presenting Foundations of Financial Planning for Veterinarians and Advanced Financial Planning for Veterinarians on Tuesday, January 20th. Jenni will have 3 sessions: Cultivating Positive Workplace Culture and Leadership, Mentoring the Next Generation on Monday, January 19th. She will also be presenting Imposter, Who Me, on Tuesday, January 20th. If you're heading to VMX, make sure to check us out and say hello to Mark and Jenni. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the very next episode.